Betty, call 911.
Betty gets sent away and Archie is on the run, so let's break down Season 3, Episode 6 of Riverdale and find out just what happened. Rise and shine on, Riverdale fam! Lisa here, and after a little break for Thanksgiving, Riverdale is back. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still as confused as ever as to what the heck is really going on this season. Do you know what? This episode had that feel a bit of like Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys meet Scream, with of course Betty being Nancy Drew, and then kind of the feel of like Kevin and Archie being a little bit of the Hardy Boys this one. And then the Scream part. The Scream, they did a tribute to Scream. I'll get more on that later, but of course, if you're a fan of the 90s and cinema and horror movies, not even horror movies, just good movies, you know what Scream is, and you know exactly the part of this episode I'm talking about. But this whole Scream part, I feel like it may have given us a hint or a misdirect, depending on which way you want to go with it, as to who this Gargoyle King is. Basically, by episode's end, though, it feels like any of the parents could be this Gargoyle King, but the show does have signs pointing to two of them, Hiram, of course, and FP. Now, this episode also brought another death and found two of our characters leaving town in various ways, so let's just go ahead and break it all down. Archie's still getting nursed back to health in the bunker with everyone taking turns watching over him, and while it seems like it causes excruciating pain for him if he even moves like a millimeter or even a hair, he somehow still manages to be okay enough to, get it on with Veronica, right? Yeah, horny teenagers and the CW, man. Anyway, Archie is on a mission now to try to clear his name, and he thinks the only way to do that is to find the guys that were paid off, and he knows that they are hiding out near Shadow Lake in the mines. Now, Veronica tries to tell Archie to hold off, to rest, and she's going to go and figure out a way to prove his innocence. So she's planning on looking through his case files, and hopefully she'll find something legit, to clear his name. But you know Archie, he's restless, he just can't let it be. When it's Kevin's turn to watch Archie, they notice that Archie has a nasty infection, so they go to get it treated under the radar because of course there's a manhunt for Archie, and they end up going to see Dr. Curdle Jr. to get it fixed up. Archie then convinces Kevin to go with him to find these guys, and when they're in the woods, they end up seeing Sheriff Mineta heading to where they're about to go, so they know something is up. So why is Sheriff Mineta a few steps ahead of them? Well, because Veronica really likes to blab her mouth and tell her daddy what she's about to do. So Veronica, she ended up grabbing the case files from Archie's house, and she is watching the interrogation tapes, trying to figure out if she can see any little things that could set Archie free. She notices that the interrogation tape of one of the boys, Donnie, is missing 10 minutes of footage. So if she can find that footage, she thinks she has the key. And of course, as she's watching all of this stuff, Hiram creepily appears. He notices that Veronica's doing some digging, and she tells him what she's planning on doing to get Archie off. And well, Hiram makes a call to the sheriff to take care of the so-called too many variables at Shadow Lake. So that's why Sheriff Mineta is out at the lake. So to try to find this missing piece of tape, Veronica heads to her mom's office to look through the computer to see if Hiram hid anything there, and she finds a file on the desktop with the same symbol that Archie has branded on him. And inside that folder, she finds the missing footage which shows the boys being coerced. So Veronica manages to send herself this video file to her fake email address just before the cops bust in to arrest her. And this is a part that, I'm still confused about the show mixing this modern technology and old school technology, because they're all carrying around iPhones or whatever, and this desktop seems to be from like 1995 on like dial-up, and it's kind of weird. Well, now Veronica's being held in the holding cell, and Hiram, of course, comes to see her, and he doesn't really plan on, bailing her out, and Veronica opens her big mouth about what she's found and how she's gonna prove that Archie is innocent, and demands her phone call. But yeah, she just can't keep any cards hidden up her sleeve. She is just laying out all of her moves here for Hiram, thinking that maybe she's going to intimidate him or scare him, but she should know by now that it takes a lot to scare Hiram. I don't think, Veronica's doing a very good job here, and she just kind of makes things worse. Anyway, she does use her one phone call to call Fred to fill him in on what Archie is doing and everything that's going on, and then she tells him to please call Sierra McCoy, Attorney McCoy, for her, because, she needs to get a lawyer there. Well, Mrs. McCoy ends up using the footage to get Archie declared a free man. It seems like Sheriff Mineta is going to be sent off to jail, but, Hiram still seems to be in the clear. But while all of this is happening, Archie and Kevin follow the sheriff to the mines, and in the mines, on the walls, they're covered with drawings of the symbols from the Griffins and Gargoyles game, and there's even a drawing of the Gargoyle King. They then find all three boys shot, pretty much looking dead on the ground. It seems like the sheriff obviously got there first. There is one boy who still seems to be hanging on to life, so they rush him to the hospital, but unfortunately he doesn't make it. Now, hot on the boys' trail and worried about them are Fred and Tom Keller, who of course been tipped off by Veronica. But when they arrived at the cave, they find just the two boys, and they think that was it, and Tom calls it in. But then he's informed that there's a third unidentified boy that was brought into the hospital, so they think this could be either Kevin or Archie, so they rush to the hospital to make sure everything's okay, and they find Kevin, and Kevin informs them that they're fine, Archie is fine, but that Archie pretty much left town, and all he did was leave a note, because by this time, Archie's like, no matter what, it's best that I leave town, whether he just declared innocent or not. Hiram's not going to stop coming for him, and he's just worried it's going to keep affecting all his friends and family and loved ones. When Archie gets to the little train station, he and Veronica have a call, and she gives him the news that he's been freed, but then they have their dramatic, you can't go, but I have to go, if you love me, don't go, all of this kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, dramatic, and then Archie heads off with the help of Jughead, so it seems like he and Jughead are both leaving town for a little bit. Now over to Betty and Jughead and their continued investigation into this Gargoyle King. So Betty's trying to figure out what Archie's symbol means when Jughead returns to the bunker saying he did see the Gargoyle King and followed him and found him in a clearing surrounded by a bunch of what looked like disciples or a gang of other little gargoyles. So now they gotta try to figure out who those people are, what this whole thing is, and just what on earth is going on? And that's when Archie overhears and wakes up and says that Joaquin may be the key to this whole thing because he went and joined another gang and he was doing, obviously, the warden's bidding. So yeah, Jughead sends Sweet Pea and Fangs to try to track down Joaquin, while Betty tries to get more answers from Alice, because at this point, Jughead and Betty are thinking that Warden Norton is the Gargoyle King. And when Betty returns home, she's informed about the manhunt for Archie, and obviously denies, helping break him out. And then she's informed that Warden Norton killed himself and had blue lips. So that basically slashes through the theory that Norton is the Gargoyle King. So now Betty asks Alice if she has any connection to Warden Norton, but Alice, of course, says no, but Betty's not fully buying it. Then in class, Sheriff Mineta is trying to get alibis from everyone, trying to figure out who helped Archie escape, because they'd obviously be in a lot of trouble. And you got Evelyn Evernever over there being still shady, sitting off to the side. Now when the sheriff questions Josie, Josie starts to panic and eventually has a seizure, very much like the one we saw Betty have and Ethel have. And Betty even gives a glimpse over to Evelyn as the seizure is happening, and Evelyn obviously seems unaffected, so what is her deal and why is she always in the place that the seizures happen? Now Betty's trying to figure out the connection to Warden Norton and the parents, so she finds out through an old yearbook that he was the RROTC instructor at the same time the parents were in the Midnight Club playing G&G. So now she wants more answers from the parents, and the only way to get them to all meet is to send invitations that say they're from the Gargoyle King to meet at the Speakeasy. And her little trick works, and even Reggie's dad is there, but there's still a dad missing. Dilton Doyley's dad, and we end up learning why. He's already dead. Now Betty learns that Norton confiscated a G&G manual back in the day, that Hiram continues to claim that he has no idea about the Gargoyle King, and of course denies his, involvement with Norton. And FP mentions he saw the Gargoyle King that night in the high school too, which is news to everyone, especially Alice. Now, since Betty is determined that one of the parents is the murderer, she demands answers, and Hermione eventually ends up being like, let's just get this over with. She points a finger at Penelope, who was the game master. Penelope then points the finger at Dilton's dad, Daryl, who she says was secretly in love with her, also the game master, and he's the one who put poison in the chalices so they could ascend together, but she refused. Then years later, after they were both married and had their own families, he came to her saying he felt guilty about all of this and he was seeking comfort, but she refused him again. So the next day, he was found dead in his car in the garage, supposedly of carbon monoxide poisoning and suicide. Now, Betty isn't so sure she's buying this story, but when she lets it slip that she and Jughead saw the Gargoyle King, that Jughead is playing Griffins and Gargoyles, their meeting is cut real short as FP ends it, storms out, runs home, and handcuffs Jughead to the fridge so that he can no longer play this game. Yeah, complete mood change in FP. This game really seems to trigger him. Betty ends up coming over and freeing Jughead. And yeah, it's that high pony and those bobby pins that come to the rescue, so we knew that high pony was good for something. But she fills him in on the whole Daryl Doyley story. Jughead then heads off to meet with Sweet Pea and Fangs, who have found Joaquin. And Joaquin has one of those gargoyle masks, so they know he's one of those little disciple guys, and they demand answers. Joaquin explains that he was just a pawn to Warden Norton, who he also thinks was a pawn to somebody else, and that the symbol that they've seen a bunch of times means sacrifice. Jughead then demands to know who the Gargoyle King is, and Joaquin says he only saw him once, but that Jughead knows him and he's the man in the black suit. Well, that immediately makes Jughead think that it is Hiram Lodge, so of course Jughead marches to Hiram's office to confront him, and Hiram just kind of laughs at him like he's a nerdy little boy, and there's no way Hiram would be caught playing any of these dumb games, so he is denying it.
But if homicidal parents are what you're after, may I suggest Clifford Blossom, Hal Cooper, Tom Keller, and perhaps even your own father.
Now when Jughead returns to camp later, they find that Joaquin is dead with blue lips and that symbol for sacrifice on his forehead. So someone's trying to send them a message, and it seems like unfortunately this time for Joaquin fans, he's not going to be rising back up from the so-called dead anytime soon. And of course, this leaves Jughead very worried about Archie, since Archie has that symbol. Meanwhile, Betty goes to see Dr. Curdle Jr. to see what she can find out about Daryl Doyley's autopsy, and she finds out that Daryl didn't die of carbon monoxide, but died of oleander poisoning, and then the murder was disguised as a suicide. She also finds out the sheriff on the case at the time was Tom Keller, so Betty goes to confront Tom, who then points the finger at Penelope Blossom because he knows he saw oleander in their greenhouse while investigating Jason's murder. So that leads Betty to confront Penelope, Auntie, who says that she wouldn't use oleander since it leaves traces. She then points the finger at Alice, who wrote the article about Daryl's suicide, and that leads Betty to confront Alice again, and this is where we get our tribute to Scream. And if you haven't seen Scream, beware, it's probably about to be spoiled for you in this video, but you really should go watch it because it's great, and by now you probably know that that's, what Skeet Ulrich is most, known for. So that made this whole bit a lot of fun. So we have Alice making popcorn on the stove, much like we know Drew Barrymore did in Scream, and she's avoiding all of Betty's questions. And then the power goes out. There's a knock on the front door, and of course, if this was a horror movie, what do? You go swing open the front door, and you're just like, oh, is anybody there? But yeah, nobody's there. So they turn around, and what do you know? The Gargoyle King is right there in the living room. So they slam that door and run upstairs. But guess what? Someone's already been in Betty's room because there is a headstone on Betty's bed that says, here lies Daryl Doyley, but that's crossed out, and it's like, here lies Betty and Alice. They then realize that the window is open and someone is coming up it, so they're like, oh crap, someone's coming to kill us, but it ends up just being FP, who comes into the window, just happens to be in the right place at the right time, and hugs and comforts Alice.
He's in the house!
Yeah, those looks that FP's given, looks like he knows more than he's letting up. And if you've seen Scream, you know what I'm getting at, but I'm going to wait and talk about that after I finish recapping the rest of the stuff that happened in this episode. So the next day, Alice tells Betty they are no longer safe at home, so she is planning to go to the farm to stay with Polly and the twins. But she knows that Betty's not going to want to go to the farm, and she's not about to let Betty go stay with Jughead and FP or stay by herself.
Mom, what's happening? Betty, there's no safer place for you now. The sisters protected me, they protected Polly. They'll watch over you now.
Yeah, Betty gets taken to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, which Alice still thinks somehow will protect her, even though she knows what all happened to Cheryl and everybody, and knows that this place is awful and how it treated her son, and yeah, she still is delusional, thinking that this place can protect Betty. Well, Betty gets taken to Sisters of Quiet Mercy, and the episode ends with her getting sat down in a painting class, and she looks around and every other girl in the class is painting the Gargoyle King. Yeah, makes you feel like she's not gonna have that dandy of a time at Sisters of Quiet Mercy. Things are about to get even crazier, and thus ends the big events of this episode. So yes, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm even more confused now about this whole Gargoyle King thing. It still feels like anyone could be a suspect. Hiram kind of still feels like he is too obvious, and like I said, right now they're also trying to point fingers at FP. So with Hiram, obviously the man in the black suit, Hiram's always wearing a suit. You had the whole folder about, what happened with Archie and framing Archie, because it had the, interrogation tapes that were missing. It had a folder on Andre, who obviously went out there and got killed. And it had the symbol for sacrifice. So the fact that Hiram would be hiding something in a folder with that symbol, he obviously does know more about the game than he's trying to let on, But with FP, we saw FP's attitude quickly change once he heard that Jughead was playing the game. It was like, oh, okay, it's fine, people are playing this game, getting hurt, I don't want to get involved. But once his own kid was involved, he's like, no, this has got to stop. Then he mentioned that he had seen the Gargoyle King at school that night back in high school.
We were all high off our gourds, hallucinating gargoyles.
Wait, FP, you saw it too?
Oh, this is such a
Well, you'd think that, he and Alice had a thing. You'd think he would have, tried to comfort Alice and be like, I saw it too, you're not alone. But that never happened. Then with the whole climbing through the window thing with the scream thing, he's given, looks that are very suspicious. He happened to be in the right place at the right time. If you've seen Scream, Skeet played Billy Loomis, who was Neve Campbell, the main character's boyfriend, and he was always there at the right time to comfort Sydney from, whoever the bad guy was. And then it turned out that he was in fact the bad guy, and it was just all, a big ruse, and he was able to, manipulate, to be downstairs or have a decoy and, use fake blood, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, so if he's pulling the same kind of thing, that he'd be able to pull it off. I mean, he's Skeet. He knows all the tricks of the trade. But this is Riverdale. You know Riverdale. They try to throw us for a loop, confuse us. They obviously have Hiram and FP being thrown at us. There's even the feeling that maybe Tom Keller is somehow involved. Penelope always looks suspicious. Everybody looks suspicious. But this FP thing, I'm hoping it's just a red herring, because I don't want them to taint FP like this. Like, I need my FP and Fred to just remain the good old dads of Riverdale. You know what I'm saying, right, guys? Like, don't mess with them. Please, let's just throw Hiram under the bus and finally end his little reign of annoying terror. It will be interesting, though, to see Alice when she finally does go to the farm. Hopefully get to see the actual farm and who this Edgar Evernever guy is. We haven't heard much about him. He's very suspicious. We know his daughter is very, very creepy and is always around when those seizures happen. So what's the connection here? There's got to be a connection, right, with Edgar and this Gargoyle King or the game. Is Edgar Evernever even his real name? Yeah, how does this Gargoyle King have his claws in literally the entire town? Even the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, even up at Shadow Lake. Pretty much everybody. Just basically what the F is going on this show. All I know is I'm going to watch the promo for the next episode and see if that helps at all. But most likely, it won't.
There's something about this place that just makes me feel at home.
Everybody's running from something.
Seriously? What?
One hand of blackjack, winner takes all.
This isn't Riverdale High.
You've been a very bad girl, Betty. Restrain her.
Okay, so next episode, Betty's basically trapped in a horror movie we have seen before. We've seen it with Cheryl and anybody else that's been at Sisters of Quiet Mercy, right? Yeah, I have a feeling, though, Betty can handle this. Betty's a pretty strong chick. Maybe Dark Betty will come out and protect her. I don't know. But Veronica, she's gambling, which I don't think looks like a good idea, because like I mentioned before, she seems to just, like, show all her cards to Hiram. Like, she's had a horrible time trying to take down her father. So I don't think she'd be good at bluffing and playing cards, right? But let's hope she's better at that. And is she going to lose her speakeasy with this bet? What is she gambling for exactly? We do know that there's that other kid that owns the casinos that she definitely owes something to, so because he helped her with, breaking Archie out and the information. So that'll be interesting. We'll see what happens with that. But then we have Archie meeting Riley Keough's character, Lori Lake. Obviously, there's some sexual tension there. I don't think Archie owns any shirts this season. It seems like every episode he is shirtless. But he and Veronica, did they actually break up, or did they just be like, I have to leave, it's for the best? he's pretty moving on pretty quickly for being so in love with Veronica. He's not good with temptation. But I am curious to learn more about this so-called farm girl, Lori Lake. Right now, I'm not trusting anybody that lives on a farm, even if it's a regular farm and not the farm. I just don't trust anybody on this damn show. Except maybe Kevin Keller. I trust Kevin. He seems like a good dude. But with Betty and Jughead now both out of town, will anybody actually be looking into this Gargoyle King madness? Like, what's going to happen now? I feel like they may have to kind of put that stuff on pause as both try to get a handle on these new situations. Maybe we'll go back to focusing on the whole farm mystery. But maybe Betty will end up getting a lot of answers from Sisters of Quiet Mercy, but it's not going to be without some kind of, price or suffering. I am curious what you thought about this episode. What were your favorite moments, least favorite moments? What do you think is going to happen now that, Jughead and Archie have gone somewhere else and that, Betty's off at Sisters of Quiet Mercy? What do you think about, these directions they're trying to throw us at who the Gargoyle King is? Do you think it has a connection to the farm? Just give me all your thoughts and theories because I need some help trying to process what the hell is going on this show. Let me know all your thoughts about every weird question I just asked because I don't know I'm rambling by now down in the comments below. Then hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my recaps or interviews that I do. And if you want to see the recap I did for the mid-season finale of This Is Us, it's right over there. I've also got some interviews with Katherine McNamara coming up tomorrow, and by the time you watch this, could be today, and it might be in this box already, but check that out too. Anyway, my name's Lisa. As always, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time.